All right, I'm just out at this sectional door or panel lift door. This one's a 4-panel garage door. And as you can see, this one has broken a spring, so it doesn't open at the moment. A nice break there in the torsion spring. That's what they do. They're attached to the brick wall up there. And then the other end of the spring attaches to the shaft, which runs the whole way along the door. Now coming to this side, the shaft attaches to that cable drum there. And that cable drum is attached to the shaft with the 2 grub screws, 1 and 2. We've got the bracket attached to the wall, the spring's attached to the bracket. The other end of the spring is attached to the shaft. And that shaft runs along and the cable drum there is attached to the shaft. The cable hooks on, runs down the side of the door and attaches to the bottom of the garage door. So when these torsion springs are fully wound, that wants to make the shaft turn, wants to wind up that cable drum, which wants to lift up the garage door. So without that spring attached, because it's broken, one spring is not enough to lift a garage door of this size. Now we did replace this single spring a couple of years ago. I'd say between 1 and 2 years ago. We highly recommend to replace both springs at once because of this. Very high chance of breaking your second spring once one spring has broken. That's why we normally recommend replacing as a pair. I'm going to get into it and replace that spring right now. The lighting in this garage is quite poor at the moment. So for now, I'm just going to get this spring replaced. But basically I start by taking the spring tension off. Luckily this doesn't share the same bracket. Normally a double spring will share the same bracket. In this case, I can just take the tension off of one spring and I can remove this single spring from this end here and put the new one on, retension that one, pair them both up again and reset the cables and we should be good to go. All right, so I'm gonna get cracking. Take off this cable drum and bracket, slide that old spring off and put the new one on and reset everything. We'll come back with this door all working again. So I've got the cable drum off, a washer, a couple of bolts and nuts, and our bearing bracket. So that's all clear to go. We can slide this broken part of the spring off now. There should just be enough room between the wall, otherwise I might have to cut some of that shaft off. Should slide off that side. There's our broken spring. This one here should come off as well. So we might have to use 2 hands and just bend it around that corner. There's a bit of a gap there. These are bendy, quite greasy actually. I might go and get a rag and we'll put that over there and bend it around. Okay, I've got the old spring off. So here's our new spring ready to go. The old one's down there. This one needs a bit of oiling up, of course. Okay, let's get this new spring on. We'll bend that around the corner. I'll get it on halfway and I'll show you how that looks. So there you go, what we do, we bend it around the corner, so heaps of room there now, until we get to the end, which doesn't bend as nicely. So that's half bent on. We'll just slide that along. We'll feed that up around the shaft. That's mostly on the shaft now. We've just got this small piece here to go. As you can see, this bit doesn't bend around as easy. That's how much we've got to go. And that's it. Line that up and push it onto the shaft. There we go. Slide that one up. So there's our new spring on. Now we just have to rebuild this corner. Got our cable drum goes on first. Then we've got our washer. Pop that over the end. Next we've got our bearing bracket. Pop that on as well. That goes flat that way against that bracket. Like this. Let's see how that's running. That's spring quite free. It does need a little bit of an oil. We'll do that after anyway. Slide that one on. Now we just have to bolt that bearing bracket back up there and put our cable back on Tension our spring, similar tension to the other one. Check the balance, adjust if necessary, and then we'll give the door a test run. Okay, let's get this back together again. All right, bearing bracket, washer, cable drum. Cable hooks onto the back like that, and we wind that up. So basically like that, but it's got, I can sit over there. All right, like that. Do that up, go and tension the other cable over there. Then we can wind up our spring. All right, we've got both our lifting cables on. Cable drums have been tightened. This spring here is still holding the shaft steady so they can be tightened up, no problem at all, and set, ready to go. Now we can take off the tension on this spring, which will keep the tension on the cables whilst we wind up the new spring. So let's grab our second winding bar, pop that in the spring like so. Lift up this winding bar, grab this one down here, pop this one out, and then I'll release this winding bar. Now the spring is being held by the two cables, and that's holding the cables. So let's go and take our winding bars and we'll wind up that new spring over there. Okay, spring rounds up. We've just got that holding tension via our winding bar. As you can see, this spring is very dry. It's just been sitting around the warehouse. So we need to apply a lubricant. I've just stretched the spring out so it opens up the coils a bit, especially with a brand new spring. Basically, you want to get the oil between the coils. The surface doesn't matter as much, just like this. Just get it so your oil runs between all of those coils. And we'll do that all over. We'll tighten up our spring and check the balance of the door. Now, to ensure everything's running at its best before we check the door, we're just going to go around and make sure the shafts of the rollers and the rollers are oiled. Let's just check one to see how it's running. We'll take the pressure off the door. They're running quite free. They are still quite oiled from the last service, so they should be okay. This Worth HHS 2000, it does last for many years, so it does cut down on your maintenance costs. We're just going to go around and give it a quick spray on each roller, just to make sure. And the hinges, they do look a little bit drier. So just give all the hinges a quick spray as well. This stuff doesn't drip either, which is fantastic. All right, door's all back together and lubricated. New spring to match the other one. Let's see if this lifts up and is balanced. Of course it is. There we go, that lifts up beautifully. We'll just check the spring to make sure there's extra tension on it. We've got two winds on the spring, so we've got heaps of extra tension, which holds that cable nice and taut. If you don't have extra spring tension, your door will start to drop down. So there we go, replacing your torsion springs on a sectional garage door. I'm that roller door bloke, thanks for watching.